everyone, it's Tasha Danvers here, two-time Olympian and Olympic bronze medalist, and you are here listening or watching another episode of Global Sports Channel Sports Personality Spotlight. I'm going to dive right in with today's guest. He is a two-time Commonwealth Games silver medalist, and he is also an Olympian. Welcome, 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 Paul Burgess. Hello, hello, Mr. Pole vaulter extraordinaire. Hey, what are you doing on that side? Get over here. There you go. How are you, Paul? What's happening?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me. Perth, Australia.
Perth. And is that where you were born and raised?
Yeah. So I was born and bred in Perth, and I managed to stay here my whole career. I didn't have to relocate anywhere, and I love it.
Awesome. Now I want to get stuck right in because I was fascinated to find out that you actually started out your career as a gymnast, right? So was that something you thought was going to be your future? Like, how did that whole process go? Were you seeing yourself as a future gymnastic Olympian, or what were your thoughts when you first started out in that sport?
Yeah, well, I was all in on gymnastics. I was part of the West Australian Institute of Sport program from the age of about 8 or 9, and it was full on training, and the goal was to try and go all the way. I think I spent about like 4 years there. When I was about 13, I realised probably I was going to be too tall for it, and at that point, the training of like 30 hours a week plus school was just crazy. So by the end, I'd had enough. I'd had it.
Right. So was that a conclusion that you came to? Did you say, hang on a minute, I am way too tall for this? Or were coaches saying, hey, listen, this may not be for you? How did you figure that out?
Well, I was suspicious. I was like, I think I'm getting too tall. And they were saying to me, oh, maybe you'll be okay. I don't think, we don't know that for sure. And I was, thinking, hang on, I'm putting a lot of work in here. Also it was just, so by the end, I think I was searching for a way out as well. Right. And I just, it was so hard. I remember just sitting on the bus that would come and pick us up from school and take us to training, just with that sick feeling in my stomach all the time, just going, oh my God, another training session. Right. I just could tell that I was going to be too tall, and turns out I was right. I'm 6 foot, so I
Yeah. Now you talk about the training load. I mean, that is a lot of hours even for an adult. Looking back now, do you think it's over the top, or do you think it's what's necessary? Because at that age of your career as a gymnast, you're pretty much in your pro prime. You're not going to have many years after that from the historically speaking. Do you think that's too much?
Well, I think it's too much for a kid to do. I don't know if it's too much. I don't know. Obviously, it's the right amount to do to be the best. But does that mean it's right? I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, 30 plus hours a week on top of school. As a kid, I think by definition, it's almost bloody, abuse.
Right. No, I can.
Yeah. Don't mean that. There was no abuse from my in that sense.
No, I understand. And you said you were tested into pole vault, or you ended up going into the pole vault, and I think that went with the Western Australian Institute of Sport. I've never heard of an institute that kind of tests you and then says, hey, well, maybe you should do this. How did that all work?
Well, it wasn't quite like that. So, I mean, the head of the West Australian Institute of Sport was Wally Foreman, who he's passed away now, but he was a legend of sport over here, and he was the director of the West Australian Institute of Sport. He knew my parents, and when I stopped gymnastics, he actually just suggested, he just said, why doesn't he try pole vault? I reckon he'd be really good at it. And of course, I thought that sounds awesome. I'd only sort of seen it on video, seen it on TV, and thought it looked cool, and went and tried it and just loved it.
Right, right. And that love for the sport meant that you went on to win quite a few things. Tell us about the first major championship you went to as a junior and what that meant for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I started in '93, end of '93. I quit pole vault, and a couple of months later started. I quit gymnastics, and a couple of months later started pole vault. And then it all just was quite rapid, really. And then in '96 we had the World Junior Champs in Sydney, and I just turned 17, and I won gold there, and that was just a dream come true at the time. I remember thinking I'd made it,
Yeah.
and that I thought I'm sorted now.
Right, right. And what when did that feeling stop? Did that feeling ever stop of feeling like you made it? Or because you went on to jump, over 6 foot, 6 foot. So that is a
6 meters,
huge,
6 meters.
yeah, gosh, you wouldn't be you wouldn't be getting very
Yeah,
far in pole
yeah.
vault if you only jumped 6 foot.
No,
Yeah,
six
six
foot. Yeah.
meters, sorry. You jump 6 meters, which, especially in that time, even more so in that time, is a huge,
Yeah.
huge, huge accomplishment. And I'm sure meant a lot to your country because at the time you were the only person that was doing that at the time. So what was that whole experience like? And did that maintain throughout your career? Was there a moment where you say, hang on a minute, I'm not quite there? Or did you feel I have actually made it?
No, no, no. My whole career was full of self-doubt, and when I say I thought I'd made it, I still sort of thought I still had imposter syndrome, when I still thought,
Right.
what's going on here? When's all this going to fall apart? But when I won the World Juniors, that was. But I remember, obviously, things like that never really hit home properly. But I had so much expectation on me after that, and then I really probably underperformed for a while. I was 17 when I won World Juniors, so it looked like I was going to have this huge career, and I was just scraping into teams for the first few years after juniors.
Right.
And I guess I think back now, and I think I was trying to act like I was laid back, and I was a surfer, and I try and act like that. But really, I think that was just a way of trying to seem like I didn't care. But yeah, it was really hard not to perform at the level that I wanted to straight away. And then it was when I was about 25, is when I really sort of made another push and got into the real top echelon of the pole vault sort of circles. But that few years in between was, yeah, I felt like I was in a bit of no man's land. And then
Right.
obviously I'd got up to 6 meters, and then that was good. I had a couple of good years, and then I was struggling to perform a bit after that as well. And then I just, that's tough. It's tough to go backwards.
Right. Now, in between that phase, between 17 and 25, what's happening for you mentally? One, to keep doing it. And what happened, do you think, to make that change that shifted you from, okay, we're kind of hanging in here, making teams, like you said, just barely, to, okay, I'm up with these guys. I'm not an imposter anymore. What
Yeah.
were some of the mental struggles and some of the mental changes that happened throughout that phase?
Well, I think I didn't give up on being at the top. I sort of still wanted to be there, and sort of was hoping it would always, something would happen soon. And I guess I was still making teams, so that was keeping me. I was just I made Commonwealth Games team, I made Olympic team, and then another Commonwealth Games team, and then I was sort of like, okay, I'm getting something out of it. But I reckon in 2004 was the big change for me was going to in Athens, and I travelled around with Tim Mack, he's the American pole vaulter who won the pole vault in Athens, and I was travelling around with him most of the year and hanging out with him, and he just was like we were just absolute best mates, and he was just like me. I remember just thinking, God, like, because I used to think all these top guys were like something different. They were just
Right.
so disciplined, so strong, so mentally tough. But Tim Mack, he was just like me, and we hung out, and it inspired me. So after 2004 Olympics, I went home with a different mindset. And within 6 months, I went from PB of 577 to 6 meters.
Wow. Wow. So it's kind of like your career and the struggles that you had were, it sounds to me like it was more of a mindset that was holding you back because you were comparing yourself in a way that really did not
Mm.
exist. So it's all in your own mind. And then when you
Yeah.
recognize that actually there is no difference, your
Yeah.
career shifted. And I think that's a great lesson for other athletes who, because I've been in that position where I say it's me and
Yeah.
them, like those great those great
Yeah.
athletes. And it's a really tough position because, to fight for second place basically is what you're doing mentally. You're always like, oh, well, where will I fit in behind those? It's a really tough place to be. So now you have this new sort of lease on life, lease on your career. What were your expectations and how did you approach the mental game of sport now? And how did you approach the physical side, which, you're still the same body, but your mind's slightly different. So how did you work through that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that was sort of, it all came together, in 2005, mentally and physically, everything was going well and it all just felt easy. So, for a while, I mean, I did sort of, I always had imposter syndrome. I was always waiting for it to all come falling down on me. Not very good at, you know, being thinking I deserve to be at the top.
Right,
But
right,
I did feel for a while that I just knew that I'd done the training and I knew that I could jump high. And I remember just at one point thinking, I could jump whatever anyone jumps, I'll jump that. And knowing that I could match anyone. And that was for about 2 years. And, so 2005, 2006, I really hung around the top. And 2006 was fun. Like it was there was three of us: Brad Walker, Steve Hooker, and myself, who were really fighting out for the top position. And every sort of comp, it would be the three of us on the dais, and
right,
and it was all, and we'd all just be battling out for who was first, who was second, who was third, and that was just a lot of fun.
right.
And then I guess after that, I had a couple of like minor injuries and just couldn't. I don't know. So you kind of have to go backwards, but I didn't want to. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, you might have to accept that you're not going to jump as high this year. I'm like, no, I want to. So I just wasn't very rational in my thinking at times, and I felt like, well, now that I'm at the top, I can't be any less, and it felt a bit of humiliation when I wasn't performing after that. If I, I guess I'm a bit of a head case like that. I just haven't. I don't think I think I was way too worried about what people thought and thinking people were thinking stuff when really people weren't probably thinking about me at all.
right. I heard someone have a quote like that. It was something like, people don't think about you half as much as you think they do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
did
was like,
that?
how arrogant am I to think that everyone's thinking of it, that, people don't
It's the
even know what's
athlete
going
way.
on.
It's the
Yeah.
athlete way, I promise you. But that
Yeah.
thinking, did it make you train harder or did it make you kind of pull away more? If you're feeling kind of despondent, was that like, well, why am I bothering? Or were you pushing yourself more than you should have, given that you had these, little injuries coming up? And how did that affect your training program?
Yeah, I was trying too hard. I
Right,
think.
right.
So, I would also Steve Hooker, Steve Hooker, the pole vault, he won in 2008 and
Right.
he moved over to Perth and we were training partners. And so before he moved, I was fine. Like he came here, I would do all my training and it was all good and I would jump high, just as high as him. He moved here and he was so fast and so strong. I was always comparing myself to him in training. Like
Right.
even we'd do a session of 150s or whatever, and I thought he would go so much faster than me, and I thought, well, I have to go faster. And I just started, trying to match him in all the things that I didn't need to because I had other strengths. But I got would get an injury, and I would see Steve training next to me, and I go, well, Steve's training, I can't stop training.
Right.
And I would just train through it, and it would get worse. And I just so many obvious mistakes, and it's so easy to see now. But at the time, I swear to God, you're not of sound mind.
Right. Now that makes me wonder then, like, with what you know now, having been an athlete and having made those kind of mistakes, how does that factor in? Because you coach now. How
Yeah,
does that help you? How does that factor in how you coach the athletes that you coach? Are you working with pole vaulters? Have you
yeah.
seen the kind of things that you used to do in the field that you work with? Tell me about your methodology and how you coach and how your training and your experience has benefited
Yeah.
or maybe even hindered your coaching style.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe at times it's helped and hindered, but because I guess you get probably I relate my experience too much to others sometimes, but I my coaching philosophy is that I work as a team, and I've got so lots of people helping me because yeah, if I can get smart people around me, it makes me look smart. That's my theory. But with these guys, they do have these irrational mental battles and stuff like that, and I do worry about them a lot, and think, God, you're doing. And I try to talk to them about my experience, and sometimes it gets through, sometimes it doesn't, and it's really hard to watch someone suffer and suffer unnecessarily. Like they can be, just catastrophizing about something that's not real, and you're trying to help them understand that, and they're just not seeing it, and it's really tough because it is something. I wish I could help them feel better, and you sort of think you can, but it's often really hard to help them.
Right, right. So
So
if
it's more
you
tortured athletes, they just sometimes they're torturing themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that goes for just everyday people, not just athletes. It's just we sometimes are
Mm.
our own worst enemy in terms of our thinking, and we create
Yeah,
scenarios that don't exist, or we really can do a number on ourselves just through our own thinking. If you could go back, or if you could speak to you during your career, and you could find a way to help you, what would need to have been done either externally or internally, probably more externally, that would have helped you? Because I'm always wondering, like you said, you watching, and it's hard. It's almost like watching a train about to wreck, and you want to help, but you don't know how to stop this train that's moving so fast. What would you do, or what would you say to your old former self, or how would you advise them so that this mental aspect that can really make or break an athlete could have come out differently?
well, I reckon I feel like I robbed myself of a few years of decent, pretty good career, because I basically just wanted, like, I got to the top. I felt like I was the best, and then I sort of fell off, and I wasn't quite the best, and I didn't want to be anything but the best. So I
Right.
thought, I was like, I need to either win or nothing, and it was just a stupid mindset. And I just wish I had the mindset. I've seen others do it where they've fallen off, and they just stick to their guns, and they train, and they sort of maybe not number one, but they're number two or three, and they're battling. And I sort of have so much respect for people that don't. I think I took the cowardly sort of approach, and just and I spat my dummy a bit when I wasn't. I was number one, and then I got knocked off, and then I sort of was like, oh, I want to be number one or nothing, and that's like a bit pathetic, really, in hindsight. But I just wish I could have been more gracious, and um, yeah, like just focused on myself and try to be the best I could be, and that would have been quite good, I think. Good enough,
Yeah. Do
but
you think
better
that
than a
can
lot
be
of other
taught?
people.
Do you think that can be taught, that mindset, like to focus on you? Or do you think that's something that comes from within? Or, could a sports psychologist have worked with you and kind of helped you through some of this? Where do you
Yeah,
stand
yeah,
there?
I think it can be. It has to be. Surely it has to be. Surely you have to be able to grow. And I think
Yeah.
I have had to go. I think I've grown and I've come to a position where that's my thoughts now. But it's like, I'm 41 years old. Hopefully, other people can learn quicker than me. But I think just being vulnerable and being okay, and putting it all out there, and doing your level best, and being okay with whatever that is. I think is is admirable, no matter what sort of that turns out to be. But I guess maybe in my experiences after sport, and how much I got brought back to earth, and then I've had kids and stuff like that, your perspective changes. So of course, things you can learn. I would like people to learn early enough to have an effect on their career.
Absolutely. There's the key. I was looking at
Yeah.
your career and it was so interesting because I felt like maybe I was stalking you the whole time. We both went to World Juniors in 1996. We both went to Kuala
Mm.
Lumpur in 98, and the
Yeah.
different Olympic Games. And we both kind of exited the sport in a very similar way. Talk about your retirement. Were you ready? How did that whole process go? What was the aftermath? Because I know I really, really struggled. And I know a lot of athletes do. What was your retirement journey?
Well, so I mean, I guess I was still jumping. Yeah, went to made the team for 2009 World Champs in Berlin. And I went to Europe, and I was struggling for form, and I knew we had to do like a pre village entry standard, and I was sort of jumping around Europe, and I started to think I wasn't going to do it. So I went to the head coach of the Australian team early and just said, I'm going to pull out because I don't want to, I don't want you to put you in the position where you have to drop me from the team. So I just pulled out when I was in Europe that year of trying to make the team, and I hadn't necessarily decided to retire, but in my mind, I'd sort of thought I've had enough of this. And yeah, then my retirement journey, I went home and had nothing else going for me for a long time. So I never. It took me about 5 years. I spent 5 years in the wilderness, I think after my retirement journey, to find my way back to coaching. And that, I think, saved me because, yeah, those 5 years were pretty grim. Drug problems, and yeah, that was a terrible time for me.
Right. So the point where you said I had enough of this, what was going on at the time? Was it mainly the injuries or you just everything about it? What was the
I think
trigger? Because
I
I'd love athletes to really understand that there
yeah
comes a time where you may feel this way, and what can you do at that
yeah.
point?
I think I thought I don't know. Like I don't know if I can get back to my best. And it was like I thought maybe I could, but I don't know if I had the motivation to do what it took to get back to my best. And also, I didn't like losing. I wasn't. It's like I sort of was wanted to. It's a bit of, yeah. It's embarrassing, but it's almost like I just wanted to take my bat and ball and go home.
Yeah, yeah. So you make this decision to retire, and as
Yeah.
you say, you have nothing going for you. What happens day one of retirement? What do we do?
Well, so that's what it was like. It was like, so one day, like last week, I was trying in my head to be the best in the world at something, and this week I'm like trying to get a job to get some money so I can eat food so I can stay alive.
Right.
It just felt like, and again, it's just so arrogant to think that I was doing something special, and that what other people, so I it really just, I didn't have a perspective. I thought, how can I go from, I didn't have any sort of job options really. Like I was looking at going and, filling shelves at a grocery store or something like that. And I was just thinking, God, imagine, again, so worried about what other people thought. I'm an Olympian. All my school friends, imagine they walk past and see me stacking shelves. They'll be thinking, God, look what happened to him. He's turned out to be a loser. And again, no one was thinking that, but I just had my confidence went so low, so low. Yeah,
I can completely relate because even after my medal, I stack shelves, right? So again,
yeah,
I've been stalking you on your life and sort of
yeah,
mirroring, you know,
yeah.
and I get it because you retire. I had 20 years. How many years did you compete?
No, like a 96, I would say, till 2009, 13 years. Yeah,
Yeah, so I was about 20, so we're kind of in the same in terms of
yeah,
longevity. And at the end of it, like you say, I didn't feel like I had any qualifications. Like, what do you put on a resume? This is like, have you been in prison for the last 13
yeah,
years? Like, what have you
yeah.
been doing? And so you don't
Well,
realize that the skills that you have are comparable that can translate into work.
mm,
And so you look for, well, where can I get in at? And so you do end up
mm.
in these positions. So where does that point come where, like you said, you are like, okay, the drugs is probably going to make me feel better. What happens in that moment where you shifted into that world?
Um, so So I would just say, like, so the other thing about it is that I think in sport, I felt maybe bitter towards the whole sport in general because I was always told that sport would give me opportunities, and it didn't feel like that when I stopped. So that was, and maybe I was just sort of expecting too much, but. So yeah, basically I got back and I think I was partly angry and I was disappointed with how I'd been jumping and how it all ended, and I was embarrassed and ashamed and all sorts of things. And then just yeah, started. It was methamphetamine that was my drug problem, and sort of just started that. And for some reason, that just made me feel better in very short term. So
Right,
it made me feel confident again. It made me feel good. But obviously, that's a vicious cycle because it's only short term, and then it's also just it was 5 years of chaos for me and just awful. Yeah, I put my family through a lot. My wife, yeah, had to put up with a lot, and I yeah, put my parents through hell. So I just and now that's the one thing I would say about it is that and I still feel a decent amount of shame around everything that happened then, but I use that as a driving force for me now because I think, okay, at the end, when I die, I'd like to have been more positive than negative. I want to sort of have been an asset to the world rather than a liability.
yeah.
So I'm working hard to try and make up for it now with what I do with coaching and working hard with my family and trying to. It's a driving force for me now.
Right. I love that because what you've experienced is so common and people don't know. Like I mean, listening to
Mm.
you, honest to God, is like listening to myself. That feeling, like you said, of what is the point? Why did I do all this? You see the people that even when you were young were competing and they stopped before you did, and they've got houses and cars
Yeah.
and all the things that you thought you would get. And I was told the same thing. Listen, follow this. This is your talent. If you follow your gift, your life will, get laid out for you. And so I had the
No,
same
no,
idea. And I don't think it's nothing on you why you had that idea.
no.
That's
Yeah.
that's what we're sold. And then you do come out of it and you're like, hold on a minute, did I miss
Yeah,
something here?
and also I guess another thing I remember thinking, as soon as I stopped, I guess I felt like I was nobody. So people started treating me different as well, and then I started questioning whether people had liked me at all the whole time. I was like, so I don't now I don't know if I trust anything.
Yeah,
Was I really was I really funny, or were people just humouring me by laughing along with me? And I just lost all that sort of stuff. Was really weird to sort of try and come to terms with. And then so yeah, I just felt humiliated, and I I will say that the thing, getting back into coaching eventually for me was the thing that saved me. I think that gives, and so it's almost like replacing the drug. I think for me is the thrill of competition and stuff. And maybe I don't know if that's healthy or not, but to me, being a coach for me has been the next best thing for being an athlete.
I love that. Yeah, no, I totally relate. Sitting on the train or the bus and being recognized and
Mm,
thinking, "Oh my God!" And people like, "What are you doing here? Why aren't you traveling by limo or driving?" It's like doesn't
yeah,
work like that.
yeah,
How
I
did you
know.
recover? When did you know you'd reached rock bottom? When did you know, enough was enough? I need to get off the drugs. I need to go in a different direction. And how did you do that? Because what I've heard about methamphetamine, it is very, very
Yeah.
challenging drug, and it's very hard to. How did you do that? How did you overcome?
Well, I thought I hit rock bottom a few times, but turns out there's a
Yeah.
further bottom. There's a
Wow.
deeper, it goes deeper. But I did several things. For a while I was hiding it from everyone, and no one knew. And then my wife found out, and told my parents, and then my parents sort of got involved, and then I sort of from then was trying to always get off it and just having relapses. I got put into sort of rehab for a bit, and that was good. It was all good, but I think I just kept relapsing, and then basically, it wasn't like I didn't want to stop. I wasn't trying to say I didn't have a problem. I knew I had a problem, and I wanted to stop. I remember at one point saying, it's just, saying to Dad, I like crying, just say, sorry, Dad, I just can't stop. I can't, but then eventually, and that wasn't actually far. That was pretty close to when I did stop. So
Right.
I ended up, for me, what happened is I gave my life over to my parents and my wife completely. So I would not have any access to money, and I got rid of all my contacts in my phone and all that sort of thing. And basically, I would, ask for $4 from my wife for a coffee, and she'd want a receipt.
Right. Right.
And it worked for me. I liked it like that. So I always say maybe the first 6 months I had cravings. I sort of like thought, oh, I had a few times, and then maybe the next for the following, so up to like 18 months, I always would say, I reckon I don't crave it, but if it was in front of me and no one was here, I'd probably use it.
Yeah.
And then after that, that took about 18 months to the point where I thought, now if I saw it, I'd just throw it in the bin or throw it in the toilet or whatever. I just wouldn't want any part of it.
Right.
So it takes a while, and it took about 18 months to feel myself again, I think, or 2 years even. I just felt like I lost my sense of humor. Oh, you just struggle to feel, when you come off it, it does a lot of damage to your brain, I think, and it's not easy. The happiness doesn't come easy, when you've been using drugs to find happiness for such a long time.
Right. It's similar to sport in a way. It's like you retire, and there was a time, especially for Commonwealth countries, where you have the Commonwealth Games and all those additional major championships that you might not have if you compete for America. You retire, and it's like, okay, where's the big thing that I'm doing every single year? Like
That's
there's
exactly
not.
what I had. Nothing to get better. I had nothing to, stay in shape for, or to worry about my health for. And I just,
Exactly.
yeah, I always was like, oh, just keep doing this for another few weeks, and then I'll stop or whatever. And it
Yeah.
just, never comes.
Right. How did your wife find out? And were you secretly relieved, or were you like, oh gosh, this is going to get in the way of what I want to do?
Um, I can't remember how she found out, but she was. I mean, she was devastated. I wasn't. I was just. I remember being. Just the whole time I just knew I was hurting people,
Yeah.
and just I remember hurting. When she found out, and then when my poor parents, who have just like I had no reason to end up in that. I had such a you know good upbringing. Easy parents with a good marriage. It was all supposed to be okay. It's all
Perfect.
on
Yeah.
me. It's all on me. Yeah. But I just felt so sorry for them. I felt, like it was hard watching them be upset. And I felt like, just devastated for them.
Right. Now,
But then I couldn't stop it either. I couldn't stop it either. I couldn't, and then they would
yeah,
obviously. The other thing is, you what? Can you stop it for me? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll try. And then I couldn't. So it was
right.
like she's
That
like, so
makes you
you
feel
love that
even
more than
worse.
me, yeah. And that's how they see it, but it's not how it works. It's not. I don't think it's well out of your control at that point. You really
Yeah,
don't have a say. You've got to try
right.
and put things in place. You have to want to stop, and you've got to put things in place that
Yeah, that's why getting
stop it
outside
happening.
help is a good tool for a lot of people,
Oh,
so their families
I
can
would
really
never have.
understand what's happening and not
Yeah,
think it's their fault and all that. Now, for
yeah. Well,
myself,
luckily my family, everyone, all were. They've never made me suffer all the shame and everything. They
right,
just
that's
wanted to help
great.
me.
That's
Yeah.
great. I know with my experience, there was a period after retiring and towards the end of my retirement of really deep depression, which led to being on antidepressants, which led to feeling suicidal. Was that suicidal or feeling that way? Was that ever an issue for you? Because so many athletes, I think people have no idea how depressed athletes get because they see all the glamour on television, but a lot of athletes suffer in silence. Were you ever in that space where you were like super depressed or feeling suicidal?
Definitely super depressed. Suicidal, I would say I've had, times where I've been, you know, thinking about it, but I don't think that I was ever quite there. I
Right,
think
right,
still, I think I'm essentially an eternal optimist, that I think I'm able to salvage everything and pull everything together.
great.
But and if it was there, sometimes it was more things about being angry at someone and wanting, and for me, I was like, if I do that, then I'm not going to get to even enjoy the satisfaction of seeing seeing who I've proved my point to.
Right, right,
But I don't think I was quite there as far as suicide at that point, or ever. I sometimes think
right,
I was thinking about it a lot, but I don't think I was actually entertaining it in a real
right,
sense.
right,
Yeah.
right. Now, you have overcome, you have been through your career, you've hit rock bottom, and then you've hit the rock bottom of that rock bottom, and then the rock bottom of that rock bottom.
Mm.
You've come through all that. And like many of us, you struggled with retirement, you struggled with who are you outside of sports? What does your life mean? Did any of it matter or did any of it make sense? And now you've found a new passion in coaching. What would you say? What if you could completely control how your athlete's career went, especially towards the end? What would you do to tell them this is what you need to prepare for once you're done, so that they're not sort of like we were blowing around in the wind for years
Yeah.
after the sport? Is there anything that you would say to them? Listen, you need to do this while you're still competing to get ready for the inevitable end of your career.
Yeah, definitely. I try to get them to have something else going on, and that's the other thing. I think I didn't have anything else going on, which made my sport such a dictator of my happiness. So if I was performing
Mm,
well, I was happy. If I wasn't, then I was miserable. And I sort of think if you've got something else that that you value, that can help, and it's not all on one thing, because a lot of athletes, there's a lot of times when you're not winning,
right.
compared to the times that you're winning. But I would just say as well, like at the end of their career, I just think to try and be patient and not and see no shame in starting at the bottom. To me, I guess that was the thing. I guess drugs and everything did to me is make me hit rock bottom. I had no shame left. I had no sort of pride. I would have, if I had to, I would have gone and scrubbed toilets or whatever. And at that point, that was almost like a beautiful thing, like that you just go, okay, I'm starting from the bottom and I'll just work my way back up.
Right.
So to sort of I think I was don't be judgmental of what people do. I think anyone who does honest hard work, you know, yeah, I think maybe I was judging myself because I was probably being judgmental on others. I was, and yeah, I just think just be prepared to work hard, start sort of at the bottom and work your way up. And that's what I've done, and it's worked for me as far as just trusting that good hard work will, you know, pay you back.
So, what now are some of the little moments in life that bring you the most joy that maybe in the past you never would have thought were things you'd even think about? What are those things that bring you fulfillment now?
Well, obviously, my kids, like I never thought. That's a real interesting one because when you have kids, you sort of that's when you understand that your career was. Yeah, like I think of I laugh at my career now and just think, God, who cares?
What
I've
was the
got
big
kids.
deal?
Yeah, you got kids, and sort of, I guess that's the watching your kids grow up and seeing your kids. I don't even want my kids to be amazing at anything. I want them to just be normal or okay.
Yeah.
I just want them to be, happy.
Yeah.
So that's I get a lot of value for that. I really get a lot of value out of coaching and helping the athletes. I really want to. This is a passion of mine that I try and at least um, have them have their career be a valuable sort of exercise, whether they succeed or not. So
Yeah.
when an athlete will say, "Oh, if I'm going to train for the Olympics, and if I make it, it's all been a waste," I'll be like, "No, it needs to be that it was a worthwhile experience, regardless. Like it should be a positive experience anyway." I don't want them to be sort of thinking that this whole you're suffering for 4 years to do this one thing and that's going to make it all better, because that's not going to happen either. That doesn't. It's like when I used to think if I jump 6 meters, I'll be happy for the rest of my life. And then you jump 6 meters and you're like, why am I still insecure about all this stuff? Why am I still?
Yeah. Yeah. The bar
Yeah,
just
so it's
keeps
like
on.
nothing. Yeah, so yeah, I just really want. I definitely don't want to play a part in having them feel miserable after their career, and I certainly want to try and be a part of making them feel okay after their career.
I love that. I love that. Final question, because I could talk to you all day because I can relate on so many levels. What, Mr. Paul, do you want the world
Mhm.
to know?
What do I want the world to know?
Absolutely.
Um,
I
uh,
people always get stuck on this one, so don't feel
yeah,
bad.
yeah. Let me
You know,
think. What
what
do I want
kind
the world to know?
or what would you want your kids to
Um,
know?
I want my kids. Okay, I want them to know that things are never that bad. The worst thing that can happen to you, you can be okay after it.
I love that. And I think that's the biggest lesson. And the thing that you can be most proud of is that you are really, honestly, a true reflection of what athletes go through. Like your story is so
Mm,
common, but people think that this is the exception. And the fact that you're speaking about it and you're being like completely open, it allows other athletes and other people who may not even be in sport, but have that same kind of experience of going from one thing and then just being feeling like they're left out in the cold and feeling bitter. I can relate to that.
mm,
The bitterness of why did I spend all these years? I've been lied to. You know that for other people who are just entering the sport or going through
mm.
it or just leaving the sport, it's such a great thing to be able to hear your
Yeah.
story and connect with it. And the fact that you're now giving back and you're working with athletes who can now relate to your story, because even though you say sometimes you don't know if they hear you or they may not respond,
Mm,
when you speak, it goes in there somewhere. It might go in a filing
mm.
cabinet, a drawer way
Yeah.
back in the back, but it's there. And the
Mhm.
more they hear it, the more it does help them in the future. So I really, really have to say, I genuinely appreciate the fact that you're willing to open up because a lot of people are scared to, because, like you said, they're ashamed, they're embarrassed. So thank you for being open because many people will hear this who've never met you before, never saw you, but they'll be able to relate to your story and it will give them the the confidence to maybe speak to someone or reach out to someone and say, hey, listen, what this guy's going through is where I'm at and I need help. And that's really
Mm,
what we want. We want to be able to get people to reach out for the help that they need. So we
exactly.
really, really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing your story with us. If people want to get connected with you or follow your athletes or your business or want to be coached by you or whatever it is you got going on, are you on social media? Is there a way that they can reach out to you
Um.
or email or, if that's something that you're interested
Uh.
in doing?
Yeah, like no, so probably if you think like Inside Waist is the Instagram of my work. That's the I don't have a public Instagram or anything,
Okay,
but
and how do you spell that?
Inside Waist. Let me just check it. Hang on. Inside, I think it's one word. Hang on. Inside WAIS.
Okay,
Um,
wonderful. Want to make sure because I know a lot of
yeah,
people like
Inside
to.
Waist, one word.
Wonderful.
WAIS. Yeah.
Perfect.
And so,
Perfect.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Well, we've
Yeah, it was a pleasure
loved
talking to you.
chatting to you. Thank you so much for opening up to us. And hopefully, we'll be seeing your athletes and you out there just enjoying life and be happy, like you said.
Yeah, you too. Thank
Thanks so
you.
much, Paul. Have a great day. Bye bye. You know, I said it a lot, and you probably were like, can you stop talking about you? But I really do relate so much to everything Paul talks about because, quite honestly, it is so common. And when I went through it, the stories that I began to hear about other athletes, because it was like, oh, don't worry, it's normal. So and so went through it. And it was just like this Rolodex list of athletes that were going through the same thing. And I was just like, why is this such a secret? Why did I feel like I was the only one? But him sharing his story and, what it's like to hit that rock bottom, a lot of athletes get severely depressed, suicidal, but to even go as far as to end up on drugs, this is not unusual. And I think it's important that we start recognizing that this is going on behind the curtain, the lovely velvet, luxurious curtain that appears to us in terms of sports. Behind that, there's a lot going on that is not so pretty. And it's not that we need to leave it, it's that these are things that can be changed. These are things that can be helped. We can do something about these things. So, what you can do is continue on supporting the show through commenting, liking, sharing, going to www.globalsportschannel.com and www.loveathletes.com, and getting involved in helping athletes not have to go through the experiences that our guest today experienced. So, again, from me, thank you so much for listening or watching. Until next time.